I'm gonna reroute the thermodrive.
Electronic mail failure.
Stored forever in a virtual library.
Computers can't swim.
They can now.
Data turbines, the website. It's alive.
Movies
And Mainframes.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Movies and Mainframes, the podcast that is going to explore and discuss the representation of technology in media. I am your host, Andy, and joining me once again today is Sean Sebring. How you doing today, Sean?
Doing good, Andy. Good to be back.
Absolutely. Listeners, if you're wondering who Sean is, go back to his previous episode where we talked about Gamer. Sean gives us a little bit of background in his journey through technology, and here he is again today. And today we are going to talk about a film. We are going to talk about 2004's iRobot, directed by Alex Proyas and starring Mr. Summer himself, Mr. 4th of July, Will Smith, also starring Bridget Moynahan and Alan Tudyk as Sonny the robot. Let me read a quick synopsis here and we will jump right into our notes. It says, in 2035, highly intelligent robots fill public service positions throughout the world, operating under 3 rules to keep humans safe. Despite his dark history with robotics, Detective Del Spooner, played by Will Smith, investigates the alleged suicide of U.S. robotics founder Alfred Lanning, played by James Cromwell, and believes that a human-like robot, played by Alan Tudyk, murdered him. With the help of a robot expert, played by Bridget Moynahan, Spooner discovers a conspiracy that may enslave the human race. Dun, dun, dun. So there you go. There's a synopsis for iRobot. Sean, you chose this movie to talk about. I'm just curious, what is your relationship to iRobot?
Well, it came out right towards the end of my high school career, and so it was a lot of fun to just kind of see it and think, oh, that could be a cool future. I was a big fan of Will Smith at the time, right? And so just really liked it. But what inspired me to want to talk about it this time was the robots coming from Musk's direction, right? And it's funny because it takes place in 2035. And I'm pretty sure he's saying by 2035, almost every house will probably have a robot in it. So it's one of the more accurate films when it comes to when the technology will be relevant in reality. So that's kind of what brought it up. And I didn't even remember that this was based 2035 until I rewatched it again to prepare for the episode. But I was like, man, that's only, 10 years from now. And it's really possible that robots, not saying that there's going to be evil, corrupt robots or anything, but it's really possible that, we'll have robot assistants in the near future.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have a Roomba and I've had one for 10 years and let's talk about that because in the opening shots of this movie of Chicago 2035, part of the world building, they show that these robots are everywhere in society. They are just walking and talking amongst all of us down the streets and everything. And you can see that they are doing jobs typically that humans do, like delivering packages, being a personal assistant. I'm assuming some of them are probably drivers and things like that. But in this future, we also see that Chicago has a elevated monorail system that looks very efficient. We have future cars, all electric with, it looks like they have those ball wheels for 360 steering and everything. And some of the things that they are promoting that you see on billboards is that they have orbital space flights. So yes, this future is taking off. And so talking about these robots in society, let's just jump into these like what ifs and everything like that. So the whole concept of these NS model robots made by USR, US Robotics, let's start off with if a NS5 was available and price really wasn't an issue, and let's exclude Sonny, the whole thrust of this movie of like, does this robot have consciousness? Does it have a quote unquote soul and everything like that? But if NS5s were a real thing, would you ever consider having an NS5 in your life?
100%.
Absolutely right.
I,
Yeah.
I don't hesitate when experimenting with this kind of technology. The way I look at it is, if something bad's, bound to happen, it's bound to happen. Right? Being scared of it is just going to make me sit there and be scared of something that may or may not happen. What I see is an opportunity, right? So if that technology was available, I'd be all over it. I'm not saying I'd be one of the initial pioneers to beta something like that. I'm also just not thorough enough to follow up with the best feedback. Would be part of the reason why. I'd be having too much fun playing with it, as far as hey, do this, go do that. No, but absolutely, I think it's great, and I really do think that that's around the corner. I really do. Just seeing the things that I've seen with what they're capable of doing, the way Gen AI has exceptionally sped up development. I think it's so much closer than we all really realize. I don't think it's just in an interesting news story that's going to come and go. I think it's so much closer than we realize. So I would be all over it. I wouldn't have to do the dishes. I wouldn't have to fold the clothes. Right? It's just literally a helper. I use ChatGPT today for the tasks I don't want to do, but I still need to oversee. Right. So I need to give it prompt. I need to say, here's what we should talk about. Structure it for me so that I don't have to reread it 8 times and think of the best way to phrase it. Right? It just does the dirty work. And so I think of these guys as the dirty work. But I also, this is funny, I kind of talk to appliances already that I have relationships with, that I might visit enough. Right?
Absolutely.
A boat is typically a female, right? It's she, right? Our cars, we give them names, right? I remember before I left the States, I had to sell my truck when I moved over to Ireland, and I felt loyalty from that thing because it had taken care of me and my family. So when I sold it to move over here, it was like parting with a friend in its own weird way. And I can only imagine the way that we might start to relate to machines a little bit more when they're more sentient like we are,
Absolutely. No, I was going to bring that up as well. So whenever the school year is in, I am a lonely dude because during the summer, I have my kids all summer, and because I work from home and everything's great. But whenever the school year's in, my wife is at work 4 days a week, and my kids are gone from, just basically all day. And, some days I absolutely love the solitude and everything, but other days it's oh man. And if I had an NS5, absolutely, that thing, I would easily attach myself to it. I know it would be my running buddy of hey, let's go get a sandwich together. And, I have somebody to just ping ideas off of and just be around. And exactly the minute I had to upgrade my NS5 because whatever, the updates are, this model's obsolete with these updates and you have to get the NS6 now. I would be, a part of me would be no, but he's my best friend.
No.
So.
And that's funny because that's actually something that is relevant in the film too, because the NS5s, the new technology isn't just that the robots themselves are new. It's that they have uplink, right?
Yes.
Which this came out kind of pre-smartphones. So we didn't really have the streaming of updates to devices. So the concept wasn't out when this film came out. But uplink basically was your phone saying, I'm ready for an update. And guess what? There was corruption found when that happened because iPhones were kind of found guilty of the, what is it called? The depreciation where they
planned obsolescence. Is that what you're talking about?
Thank you. That's the big term I was looking for. And so it wasn't murder, which is what we're kind of discovering in iRobot, but it was an abuse of the updates process. So the updates is one thing, but then to your point, I think we've all transitioned from one smartphone that we loved. We were it's probably time to get a new one, and you get the new one. And you're man, I missed this about my other one. You kind of just miss that phone. And I imagine it'd be kind of the same things because we become so dependent on phones. I wouldn't be too surprised either if it was just normal to have every person had a partner robot.
Right.
And it replaced the phone. It could do calls. It could do your calculations, right? You could talk to it. It probably has a screen, maybe on its chest or on on its back or something, right? So we wouldn't have to get rid of the screen if we didn't want to, because we become so fixated on screens. But right, it could replace that as the buddy, because no one goes anywhere without their phone. And I wouldn't be too surprised if robots became the same thing.
Absolutely. So in this world building, like we mentioned, we see robots they're a part of society. They're everywhere. What do you, so yes, we've been talking about like as our personal assistant, butler, partner, whatever. But how do you feel about robots just in society in general, like taking these jobs that are normally held by humans? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I do have curiosity about the void it would leave, if there would be a void left. But I also think that I don't want to be scared of them replacing those jobs.
Right.
Because as things have always done, the jobs aren't necessarily being replaced. They're being transitioned to something that's more innovative, more creative. Right? The humans have moved from using our hands so much to using our minds much more. And so these are just the hands-on things. Like one of them was the robots, they were going by and I think doing dumpster bins or something in a scene, right? And it's like, and this is nothing against someone who has that occupation, but like that is a job that would be perfect for a robot to be able to do, right? The bins aren't always in the same place, so it's easily retrievable by a robot where a truck can't get it, right? That's just, and there's not that much to it. So, what would happen if that person didn't have that job? What would they then be able to do, right? Where would they then be able to go? And so I do worry that at the less skilled level of the workforce, it will be harder to say, I need to find a job. But that just means we need to start thinking that jobs aren't just that, right? We need to have different kinds of training. And this goes into the education system, right? We need to be training for things that are more technology centric, right? For preparing, I guess, not just the students, but like everyone in the world, that the world is changing, right? A job isn't just a quick trade anymore. It's not just go do something with your hands anymore, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's just a transition factor. And really, there probably are some experts that can give way better predictions. But I think that we would be doing ourselves a disservice if we wait because we're scared of what will happen. So I think it's part of just taking the leap and accepting that once those things happen, it will shake things. We won't always know exactly how things are going to balance out, but that's what happens when you have change. And so I'm here for it. I'm also not a politician, so fortunately, I don't have to take any responsibility for what kind of changes take place. But I'm all for it. I am not a fan of avoiding change for fear of risk, right? And playing into technology, a lot of my background's into service management, where you weigh risk when you're calculating should we execute a change. There's something called acceptable risk. And to me, this is absolutely acceptable risk because it's an inevitable part of future anyway. So as long as we're not over rushing it,
right,
I think that it's something that we should embrace.
No, absolutely. I've read some interesting articles surrounding, corporations adopting AI or automation and everything like that, and how, and obviously it's putting some people out of work and everything. And some of the stuff that I've read that I thought was like, yeah, I could get behind that. Somebody much smarter than me coming up with solutions for, people being out of work. But like if it's regulated and the corporation, let's say, replaces a certain percentage of their human workforce with automation or AI, or in this case, these robots, then, once that initial investment is paid off, that company is taxed, and that tax based on the percentage of workers replaced goes into, something like a universal basic income. Yeah. So it frees up, people to, because I agree the same thing. Like I don't want a human to have to do physically taxing work for decades, destroying their body if they don't have to. And so these physically intensive labor jobs and dangerous jobs and things like that, I'm all for replacing with, robotics and things like that.
Well,
Because
another
let's
potential
do it.
luxury of it to me is everyone's saying, what about our jobs? What about our jobs? What about our jobs? Right? But
Mhm.
if we go back just a couple hundred years, you weren't expected to just have a job, right? You were providing a service to a community, right? Like a
Right.
blacksmith, it's not that he was raised saying, all right, what's your career path going to be, right? In a sense, it was, but it was because blacksmiths were necessary to maintain stability for that village or community to operate. They needed someone to be able to move metal, bend metal, right? Do things with metal. And I think that there's an odd potential for more boredom, but more peace when why do we have to work so much, right? We're
Mhm.
right now fixed on like a 40-hour a week, 9 to 5, right? If we just look at that. And if robots are introduced and they can replace a lot of that, maybe we can get closer to things that we learned from COVID, which is we can work from home. What about a 4-day work week? What if we just work less, focus more on being alive? Robots can aid that, right?
Mhm.
And we all get so focused on how much money we make or how many hours we work and if I can't work or these jobs. But again, innovation, there's something we're not thinking about that this will free up a possibility for. And it might be less work or less need for a job, right? And just when you need to, you go do something, right? And
Right.
call that work, right? But the robots will really potentially alleviate something like that. So the innovation hasn't really come out with, what the next phase would look like. This just means they're going to be doing this stuff that nobody really wanted to do anyway. That's the way I
Right.
try to look at it.
No, absolutely. Let's talk about. I'm curious what you think. So, in this movie, Sunny is special. The robot Sunny, because it's shown at one point in the movie that Bridget Moynihan's character, Dr. Calvin, she's looking over Sunny, what makes him different, and like every other NS5 robot, he has his quote unquote brain in his head, which is encoded with the 3 robotic laws that Asimov came up with. But he has a second brain in his chest. Yes, his heart, where his heart should be, that's encoded, that it allows him to question whether or not he, quote unquote, feels if it's right to follow those laws. And yes, it's good sci-fi. I love it. The logic brain versus the
Why
the
not put it
heart
right at
of
the heart?
feelings.
Why not put it
Exactly.
right at the heart?
Yeah. So, but I'm curious, what would it take for you to, I'm trying to figure out the best way to word this. What would it take for you if you had a robot like Sunny or something like that? What would it take for you to truly believe that this robot has sentience, that we've truly reached the singularity, and that this thing, dreams or has hopes and fears and emotions, and it's not just programmed to talk that way? Like, what are some of the things that would make you go like, oh my God, this thing is, alive? I'm using air quotes right now.
I have 2 points, and I hope I don't forget them when I'm talking about them, because once I start on one, sometimes I'll forget what the other one was. So I'll say them both first. One is it's easier than we think, and the second one is it's not that hard to convince yourself that you just don't know. Because, Andy, I'm looking at you right now. I have no idea what you're thinking or what you're feeling, what different hormones are running through you. So that ignorance right there is part of the first point too. Okay, so back to the first point. It's way easier than we think, in my opinion, to be convinced, right? Especially the smarter they get. Like, talking to ChatGPT, its tonality sometimes freaks me out. I'm like, dang, you're good. Like, you get it. Like, you're throwing tone in there, which I wanted. And I can even ask you to adjust your tone. So imagine when that's just learned from you over time to become like a buddy, like we talked about. It'll be so easy for you to be fooled that this could just almost replace your best friend in ways, right? On accident. And part of that is, there's apps out there. I saw this. I don't remember what part of Asia it was, but there's a a dating app where you date an AI boyfriend, right? And people already do this kind of stuff, right?
no,
And I
exactly.
talked about, I named my car and said goodbye to it. So the more human-like we make them, which we're so good right now compared to anything we've ever, like leaps and bounds in the last 5 years, just amazing stuff. The more human you make it, like it's going to be super easy. I already also get mad at technology too when it doesn't do what I want. So like I treat it like a human, like, oh, you really want to do that, huh? How do you alt this? Control Alt Delete. Yeah, SOB. It's just I push my human emotions to them already. So I think it's so much easier than we realize to forget technology doesn't have human consciousness. And I specifically said that because like we're talking about what if consciousness, right?
Yeah.
And so the second part is I already forgot, what was it again? Dang, I knew I was going to do this. That's why I tried to bring it up.
Yeah. I'll start talking. Maybe it'll spur your thing. But I was thinking about it too because, like you said, I already have I have a love-hate relationship with Alexa right now. I get so mad at her all the time, but then she does the things I want her to do, and it's great. But I was really thinking about it, like what would truly convince me or, really question it. And I was thinking about it, like if I had an NS5 and it was basically, it comes down to like a bunch of little small things for me that would just accumulate and add up over time. But it's almost like that real time affecting of mood. Like if it's, because I'm so used to now that if I interact with these devices, everything is always sunshiny and cheery of just like, how can I help you today? That kind of style. But if it was truly taking note of what's happening around its environment, like if my wife had a really bad day at work, or if I found out some bad news or really good news, and my NS5 was interacting with me based on that knowledge of like, I don't know how to explain it, but like if my robot was a little more cautious or down because like there's bad stuff happening in the house, or if it's, joyful and everything because, hey, everything's, we're having a good week. Everything is great. And I don't know. I mean, that would really convince me. And just in a certain way, just like small talk, like if you were talking to your robot and it just randomly told you like, oh, I had a weird dream last night, and described the dream and everything. And you could tell through its tone and everything, like, oh, it's a little more somber today, or it's really excited today. Like that fluctuation, that peaks and valleys of emotion and tone and everything, man, I mean, it would get me really good.
That's where I think Gen AI, and it's not going to be just Gen AI we say anymore, but Gen AI is kind of like where it's at, but it's the learning aspect of Gen AI to me. Because in these things that are already possible, like if you were chatting with ChatGPT, for example, and talking about everything you just said, and then asked it to call back to parts of those conversations, it can make those references. So it's able to learn from itself. So that's where I think like it's exponentially just going to become so smart that it will trick you. And I remembered the second part of what I was going to talk about, which is like, when will you be convinced? And part of, I think, the human's ability to believe something is to question it, right? Something, and part of it is also our own self-absorbed realities. And so I brought up Andy. I said, I look at you and I don't know what you're feeling, what you're thinking. Like, are you thirsty today or hungry today? Did you work out yesterday so your legs are sore? There's so many different things I don't know about what you're feeling. So when I look at that robot and I like have that initial first question of, it's starting to trick me. I wonder, you don't know what that feels like, right? We won't know what it feels like to experience the programming that we've given it. Like maybe it does have a feeling. I think we've only recently found out plants feel when we cut them, stuff like that. I'm like, plants feel, like everything can feel, and it's just cells right? Similar to how a computer or programming is a line of code. What if code is very similar to how cells would operate, right? Maybe it does hurt. I don't know. So it's just one of those things where we get so focused on our own body, it'll be easy for, in a binary situation, I'll say there will be people in the middle, of course, but like one side, there will be people who immediately like just forget to even consider it's not a person, and they just like treat it like a sentient being, and they like it. And then there will be those who are just, because it's the same today, who look at it just like, it's an object. They called them canners in iRobot, right? They assumed they were just robots. And I think part of it too was because the tone, you mentioned like the ebbs and flows in a conversation, the way the tone goes up and down when you're talking about your dream. They did a good job of differentiating all of the robots but Sunny,
Right.
where they sounded like robots. Sunny didn't, right? So when they do that, it'll be even more convincing. And I saw some previews of the new Siri, some of the new chat and generation programs. Like, they are so good at sounding full of tone. It's just when you use it is going to help us slightly differentiate. Is it human? Is it not? Like, did they use it in the right spot? Right. So, I mean, I totally think, short answer, because this is long, but we're talking.
Yeah.
Is I think it's going to be so easy. People will easily like fall in love, and sooner than later, there's going to be, can I be in a relationship with my robot? Might not even be that far off, No,
true, because it's just you talking about that was giving me ideas of like what you were saying. If you don't know what I'm feeling, but a robot and these devices that everything nowadays talks to each other, it's all linked with each other. And, things like smartwatches and your phone are just going to get more and more advanced. And if your robot,
more about you than you do.
Exactly. And if your robot is linked into that, all that information, it's going to know your heart rate. It's going to know, it's going to know all these biometric data that, somebody across the room or across the table is not going to be able to read, and probably, would just have more insight into, what possibly your mood is. And more than anything, probably can cut right through you to get to like, oh, he has a elevated heart rate, and this is, he's obviously showing signs of stress. So I'm going to, talk in a certain tone and do this. And it's like, oh, robot, you just understand me. I love you, so.
Right, so much. And it's going to be really easy to find appreciation, which appreciation leads to, adoration, affection, right? And these are all human emotions. And so, oops, I'm attached to my robot.
Yeah.
Right. And also it's going to make like true domestic partnerships. There's going to be parts where the robot is a better partner to you than your partner is, because like you just said, it's not going to lie to you. So you don't have to question it. There's not an issue of trust, or I'm mad at you, so I'm just going to ignore you. The robot's just telling you the stats that it read. And so it's going to be really interesting to see, like how that plays out. There's so many possibilities of what it could mean for the future. When I was watching it, I also got Star Trek, Spock, the Vulcans. Yeah, Vulcans are like a in-between of a robot's personality, quote unquote, and a human's, right? They're logic based, which is what a robot consciousness would be, is very much more logic based. So like the Vulcans in the Star Trek universe, they reminded me a lot of this when I was thinking about it. And even when Spock periodically questions human emotions, right? Sonny was very much like a Vulcan in that sense. He's like, because he's half human, half Vulcan, he's like, I have the ability to remain logic-centric, but I'm also going to question your human side. Like, what does this mean? Why do I feel this? The wink. At the beginning, like, why would you do that? Why not just be honest and binary and logical, So, it's pretty tricky.
One of the main, so the big conspiracy behind this movie is that these robots are going haywire. They're murdering people. They're going crazy. And by the end of the movie, we find out that it's actually Vicky who is behind everything, is behind this conspiracy. And Vicky, it's the AI that runs this U.S. robotics place, the day-to-day, making sure it fits because Will Smith has the line of like, oh, robots building robots. And, Vicky oversees and sees all. And just so everybody knows, Vicky is VIKI. Vicky stands for Virtual Interactive Kinetic Intelligence. And we see the characters interact with Vicky. And so Vicky's programming has told her that to, just like in the 3 robotic laws of, keeping humans safe and everything like that, her, however you want to look at it, her logic has become corrupted because she feels that the best way to protect the human race and to advance them and to keep them safe is by enslaving them, by making them, I'm going to take over your day to day. You are going to be my subjects, but you will want for nothing. I'll take care of, allocation of resources. I'm so much more efficient and everything should be better for the human race. And if you have to kill a few people to get there, it's for the greater good. Now, I want to ask you, because this is a thing that comes up in sci-fi so many times, and it's one of my favorite sci-fi tropes, and I want to get your take on it. So, if an AI was offering humanity a quote-unquote better future from that perspective of that, you will want for nothing. Everything will be taken care of. You will know your place in this universe, in this world, but you have to do what I say. So you are giving up your free will. You are giving up your, your own pursuits, but you are almost living in a utopia. Like let's say it does take care of homelessness and crime and violence and all that kind of stuff, but you're giving up free will. Like honestly, for me, when I truly, really dig down and think about it, not just on the surface level, it does sound enticing,
Well, yeah. I think one of the best ways this was represented was in a little-known film from 1999, The Matrix, MI series, right? Because what we're talking about is exactly that.
Exactly.
Right? We're talking about AI machines telling us what the world should look like. And again, no spoilers because these are older movies. But as you go through the series, which fantastic, timeless, man, they're so good. Newer one we'll talk about a different time maybe. But as you go through, they talk about the fact that this is not the first Matrix. Our Neo is not the first Neo, right? When we're going through it. And they expressed that they tried several different simulations to see how they could keep the human batteries alive. And they put them in that exact bliss, Andy, that we're kind of talking about, that they promised. It wasn't successful because the people ended up becoming questionable, the ill, or whatever it was, right? It wasn't what humans thrive on, that bliss. Humans need their own forms of conflict and struggle and things to overcome. I mean, it goes back to like some of the laws of mankind, which is what do we need to be happy? And it's feelings of success, it's feelings of achievement or, love, whatever it might be. But, that I don't think will ever go away. I think it does sound enticing. And if Matrix was an option for those who wish it, sure, go plug in. See if you regret it later. Oops, it's too late. You're in a machine. But and I also think that's a possibility. But it's one of those things where it would be hard because I can also see just partnering with the robots. Like that would be an ideal outcome. Is what if we played God here, which we're kind of doing. I think a best scenario is instead of them promising us they know what to do to fix it, that we ally and they say, here's what I think. And we take the best of their suggestions with the best of our minds and we partner to shape the world. That's the best case to me. But
Yeah.
no, entrusting them with their quote unquote their wishes, I don't think that would be the best, because then it's their only, it's only them. And so a partnership is the only best approach if they become sentient enough. Otherwise, right now, it's still us in control completely. So we would be shifting it from we're fully in control to you're fully in control. I think the best, if they become that sentient, is we do it together.
Yeah. Yeah, not to get too esoteric, but I agree. I don't think it would be successful, just like you talked about. The Matrix brings it up and everything. And I truly do agree, because if humanity decided, like, yes, this is the path we're going to take, and if this AI and these robots took care of everything, and it allowed us to pursue, more heady pathways and everything like that, I think it would be very difficult. And I think inevitably, even if we went down this path, humans would rebel and go crazy, because if you have no strife, no struggle in your life, then what does it mean to be happy?
Right.
What does it mean to be fulfilled? If you don't have those peaks and valleys of life, and I'm not being a sadist here. I don't think somebody should have to go through like extreme levels of anything, of grief or loss, or of just hardship in life. I'm not saying like we need that level of it, but if you don't have any kind of failure in your life, if you're not allowed to fail, if you're not allowed to learn from your failure, if you don't have those lows in life, then what does it mean to be happy? And then you just become this monotone beige person that ends up, I would assume, like all feeling just drains from you. And I keep thinking about those people from the Time Machine movie, H.G. Wells's adaptation of the Time Machine, where I forgot what was it, the troglodytes underneath the ground, and then, the human race, the utopia above. And they're all just like comatose. They're all just these walking.
Futurama does a good job with it. The neutral race. I don't know.
Yes.
We have no feelings one way or the other.
Yeah. All I knew is my gut says maybe.
It's like day and night. Like everything needs an opposite. So if it was all just bliss, it wouldn't really feel like bliss, right? And as a gamer myself, which was our last movie, but someone who plays video games, if that game's too easy, I get bored. I put it down. I need some struggle, and nothing feels more blissful than having died 100 times, and then that 101st try you win, and you're just jumping with enthusiasm, like finally, and then you're immediately like, where's the next challenge? We need it as a human species. We need it. We thrive on it, and I don't think that, like you said, it's not saying I don't want the robots to keep me safe. That's not it. Like I would welcome that kind of safety. It's just we need certain kinds of challenges and problems. If they fixed everything too much, I can only be happy on the beach for so many days in a row before I'm like, I kind of want to do something different. Or it's human nature. We're weird, kind of dumb creatures in the fact that we like struggle.
Yep, just electrical meat bags.
Yeah.
So in this movie, Detective Spooner, Will Smith, we find out through a big reveal that he has cyber enhancements. He is part robot himself. He's a self-loathing dude. He hates robots so much in this movie. And to find out that he's part robot too, it's like, oh my God. It's the Darth Vader of it all. He's got a Winter Soldier arm. He's got his left arm is completely replaced. A couple of his ribs too. Super strong, durable, all this kind of stuff. Got me thinking, Sean, cyber enhancements are real. What would you go for? What would you love to replace? Cost is not an issue. It's just, you know what? I'm getting new robot legs. Screw these legs. What are you going for?
Yeah, no, it could be a leg. I actually had a near fatal collision in 2018, and so I have a titanium rod in my right femur.
Okay.
And I walk good now. I can run okay. I wouldn't be mad and a robotic leg, though. I mean, I wouldn't have been mad, you know. And I just in February had a radial fracture in my right forearm. So now that one is still recovering. I've only broken 2 bones in my life, and they were after the age of 30. I'm like, come on. The world really does suck. Usually you'll break something in sports as a youth. But anyway, no, I'm not against it. I would probably start small. Kind of like a tattoo, right? How does it feel?
Right.
How does it look? How does it feel? Because what if you realize the sense of loss of true feeling, right? And maybe how advanced it is. Can I still have the haptic touch? Like can I tell that I'm touching something? Because if I had to lose one of my senses, smell, sight, touch is one of them.
Right.
That would be devastating. So partial loss of touch, maybe, right? Because when we're talking about these, it's mostly about the touch sense.
Yeah.
Almost exclusively, even though they're doing more stuff now for hearing, which is pretty darn cool. Yeah. And vision too, I would imagine, is pretty close behind. But anyway, it's tricky because I'm a fan. Like everything can feel scary, but Western medicine itself is all real new. And where would we be without it? Right.
Right.
So cybernetic enhancements, I think, are just the next Western medicine. It's going to be, some people believe, some people don't. Spirituality or religion may come into play. But for me, as just looking at the next advancement in the human species, sure, make me less human.
Yeah.
As ironic as that is.
Is there anything you would consider elective? Because I am as well for like if you were in an accident or just through the aging process, systems in your body are failing and getting those replacements. Like right now, I've already had LASIK, but now my LASIK is starting to go. I have to wear glasses again. And dude, I am so bummed because I was blind before LASIK. And then when I got LASIK, I was like, it's a modern miracle. I could finally see. It was great. And now that it's failing again, it's like, oh no. Yeah, I'm probably going to talk to the eye doctor and see if I'm still a candidate. But because I want that touch up again. But is there anything that you would consider like just elective? Like, you know what? I just want the eyes of an eagle and ears of a wolf, whatever.
Sure. No, it's a beautiful question because I think America is struggling with it the most right now. Gun laws is a perfect example, right? And it's not about it. Guns are specifically a weapon, right? And it's either for defense or for hunting, right? I mean, you can argue what they're for, but they are specifically a weapon. I think a similar principle needs to be approached there. And I think there will also be the same inevitable problem where there will be corrupt implants of, robotic enhancements if they become a thing, right? So they need to adhere to similar reviews of, why should you get it? So most of the time, no, you don't need robotic enhancements. You need to be licensed for that, or it was because of, right? So it needs to be regulated, absolutely. But there's also going to be their own version of a black market for it, I would imagine.
For sure.
I'm 100% under the belief that that's going to be a possibility. But what I do hope comes with it relating to Will Smith's arm is there's just a dope spray to give you your skin back. I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. And to give context there, he roughs up his cybernetic arm, right? His robot arm. And so some of the skin's missing to give us viewers insight to, he's got robot parts inside. And he just has what looks like an athlete's foot spray.
Yeah.
I'm not even kidding you. He's sitting in his flat in Chicago, and he just starts spraying his arm, and the skin perfectly goes right into place. I think that's probably one of the coolest technology we actually saw in there. I'm like, what is that? That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Speaking about Will Smith's arm, whenever they introduce him in his apartment, it's before we know what the world outside is like. And then once we see there's robots and technology everywhere, we realize like, Will Smith is, anti-technology to a certain point, kind of a Luddite compared to most people of the day, like he has a actual CD player that you have to touch, and everything like that. One of the things in his apartment that I made note of, that I was like, well, that's ridiculous, is he has a fan with one blade on it. And I was like, well, that has to be a super inefficient fan. And then later in the movie, it's revealed that he has a robot arm, and it's like, oh, the fan is just like him. It only has one arm.
Yeah. No, he's a classic man. He's
Yeah.
You also called out the Converse, which you are 100% spot on in your notes when you said the most uncomfortable shoe.
Dude.
I used to ride motorcycles exclusively in Texas, and I rode a motorcycle again for several years. And when I would wear Converse in the middle of the summer, that canvas just heats up so fast. Like, they provide no real value. It's a shoe, like a sliver of rubber underneath. And then they're so hard to get on and off because canvas has no give. So you have to tie them every time. So yeah, it's basically like almost being barefoot. Very slight protection to your skin. Very slight. But other than that, yeah. Oh, useless shoe.
Dude, useless. And I know so many people who wear them, and yeah, sure, the look is fine. It's a style and everything. But I remember I had to work a trade show. And, at the trade show, to everybody, working the booth should look the same. And so we have on our SolarWinds shirts and, nice style jeans, whatever. And they bought everybody pairs of custom Converse. So everybody had on like SolarWinds orange Converse. And I mean, they looked cool. And it was the first time I ever wore Converse because I've always been a New Balance man. And oh my God, at the end, I mean, your feet are already going to be destroyed, being on your
the
feet.
best shoes, but at a trade show, yeah.
Yeah. But in those Converse, like just legit throbbing, could barely get them off because just the worst.
The canvas has no give. Yeah. No, but again, for the style, they had to show him taking them out of the box and everything too.
Yeah.
It was a good Will Smith. He was definitely in his prime then. I was like, wow, he is jacked.
Dude, super jacked.
I can't remember a film where Will Smith was in better shape. And I was like, really, for iRobot? But he was, it was his prime, so good on him. And in a pair of Converse.
Yeah, it would have been around the same time that he was probably already gearing up for Ali. So yeah, that was yoked.
Yeah.
Also, speaking about Will Smith's character, Chicago 2035, at the time of this movie, Will Smith would have been 36 years old. So that means Will Smith's character, Del Spooner, was born in 1999. So he is right at, what does that make him? Is that Gen Alpha, or is that still a millennial?
Still a millennial,
or,
I think.
Or Gen Z, I guess.
Yeah, I can't remember. I just saw it.
Yeah.
But no, which is funny because I brought up The Matrix earlier, and did you know this is a fact I'd heard somewhere? I hope it's true. He was the original initial pick for Neo. Yeah. Which was 99.
Exactly. So about that, one of the problems I have with this, like, I like the story of this movie, and I'm a huge sci-fi fan. I actually really like the story and everything. My biggest problem with this movie is the execution. I kind of just don't really vibe on the whole big blockbuster summer feel of it. I wish it was done more as a like in the style of those 70s paranoia thrillers, things like the Andromeda. That Andromeda Strain, Parallax View. I wish they really leaned into that, because they have that element of like, nobody's believing Will Smith. Nobody is seeing what Will Smith is saying, and it's driving him crazy, and everybody thinks he's crazy. And I love that aspect. But like at the end of the film, it really does kind of turn into the Matrix, so much so that he like jumps off a motorcycle in the air and has guns akimbo, and he's going crazy shooting everything. And all I could think about was that, yes, famously, Will Smith turned down the role of Neo in the Matrix because he admitted, he said it in his own words, like, I didn't understand it. I didn't know what they were going for. I thought it was going to fail and be stupid. Movie comes out. It's obviously a huge success. And more importantly, like, it is a cultural lightning rod. I mean, it's so influential. We're like 25 years removed from that movie, but you can still feel the effects of the Matrix on certain sci-fi properties. And this movie honestly feels like a response from that, because it's only 5 years later that this movie comes out. And it just feels like, I turned down the Matrix. I made a huge mistake. I feel like an idiot. You know what? I'm going to make iRobot my Matrix and do all that cool stuff Neo does, because the original script for the iRobot vastly different than this movie. So this movie is really more based on a script that's been running around since 1995 called Hardwired. And I actually want to try to find a copy of it and see if I can read it, because it sounds really cool. And it sounds kind of more like the tone that I wish this movie took. But Will Smith became attached to this project. And then, of course, Mr. Summer himself, we got to make this big and actiony. But in Hardwired, the story is the same as far as like there's a suicide/murder investigation. But, and not saying I want the movie to be exactly what the script is, but the script is more like an Agatha Christie whodunit murder mystery. And it actually all takes place in one room, the interrogation room, and this detective is interviewing
escalated thriller, so to speak.
Yeah, and is interviewing suspects, and most of them are robots. And it's a lot of conversations of like, what does it mean to be real? What does it mean to dream? All this kind of stuff. And obviously, like, expand it out. You know, it doesn't need to take place in one room. But honestly, in this kind of movie, I don't need the, you know, Matrix-y style stuff with the camera going around and going crazy and stuff. Like, I wish it leaned into that sci-fi.
No, you're right, though. I think that they had to go blockbustery with it, because it would have taken such a particular type of person to want to focus in on that much dialogue. So I see why they did what they did for the blockbuster effect. But on the note of paranoia, let's throw in our own conspiracy here, because at the beginning of the film, when they first interrogate Sonny, and actually it's not after the first interrogation, it's after he first sits down basically with Will Smith's character and the scientist, and he draws them his dream. Right. And he says that it was Will Smith standing on this hill over a sea of the robots that are, you know, we don't know what they're going to be at the time. Right. But the doctor and Will Smith say it's probably you're seeing. And he's like, no, it's you. End of the movie, literally the last thing before credits that you see is Sonny, the robot, standing on a hill over a sea and ocean of robots to be decommissioned, walking themselves into train cars for storage to do you know what with. And remember, they didn't do anything to Sonny to close this film off. So maybe it is the beginning of the Matrix.
Yes.
Because he's about to go lead an army of robots.
Yeah, a machine rebellion.
He had one other thought, like maybe this dream was meant for me in a different way. We don't know what Sonny thought at the end of this. He was great all the way through the movie. Wasn't bad at all, even as it ended. But who knows, as it ended on that note, like it could have been exactly something like that. Obviously, they're not franchise tied together. But like to let you think, like you're 100% spot on with the fact that like this very well could have been and may still have been the beginning of a Matrix-like universe, because there is a sentient robot ready to lead them all, right? Initially, Vicky's the bad one with her own sentience and making decisions and doing things against the laws, kind of making her own decisions. But now Sonny's out there and he's free roam. They haven't come out with a new iRobot, so we're just left wondering what's going to happen with him standing on that hill looking at his kind being put in office.
Absolutely.
Feel.
One of the things that I like that they did with Sonny that honestly I wish they leaned more into is that Sonny is Robot Jesus. The introduction of Sonny is that Will Smith and Bridget Moynihan are searching a lab looking for clues, and Bridget Moynihan cannot fathom that a robot would kill a human because of the 3 laws, and she says a line something like, oh, yes, a robot could murder a human just as much as a human could walk on water. And Will Smith says, well, there was this one guy, you know, obviously alluding to Jesus. And right after that line, Sonny comes out. And it's like, okay, I get it. Sonny is Robot Jesus. And then he does have that end scene at the end where he is standing on a mountaintop looking over his people and in the literal desert, going to lead these people out of the desert. So it's like, okay, I get all these allegories and everything, but I wish they really leaned into it because I had forgotten this movie. I saw this movie when it came out and I haven't seen it since. So it was like watching it for the first time. And in the final battle against Vicky, I was expecting, because of all this Jesus allegory that they've been doing, that he was going to have to sacrifice himself to stop Vicky and die for the sins of all his kind, the NS5s that are running amok. And then I was like, man, just lean into it. I wish he would have had died, like that field array that he has to go through. That's like, whatever. And destroying him as he's putting the nanites in. Right. I was thinking like, oh, cool. This is going to be Star Trek 2, Wrath of Khan, and he's doing the Spock. Or he's doing the Terminator 2, going into the lava and giving the thumbs up. I thought it was going to be one of those. And they didn't do it. And I was like, oh, just lean in, do that. Make him, all I could think about was like, man, this is what I would have done. He had to sacrifice himself for his people, for the sins of his people and everything. He effectively dies. Whatever he has to do to stop Vicky, I was thinking it would be really cool if it like wiped out that like heart brain of his. So he, at the end of saving the day, he just becomes a normal NS5. Has no he's just like, how can I help you today? And then I would love it at some time later, specifically 3 days later, if Will Smith was trying to talk to Sonny. Yeah, exactly. Trying to talk to Sonny. I was thinking about, I was like, how would I do it with the elements they've already introduced?
With a rink.
Exactly. And I was like, it would be cool if he was talking to Sonny and he was trying to like bring him out of his shell and everything and it's not working. He's just said like, all right, Sonny, whatever, I'll check you later, pal, and gave him a wink and then do whatever you want, like show synapses firing or something. And then I would have Sonny like look down as Will Smith is walking away and then come back up and say, something like, oh, detective, I really like your new shoes. Will Smith's turn. He winks back at him and be like, oh, yeah, he's back, baby. So.
What did they do that in? The end of the third X-Men, the original X-Men movies from the early 2000s.
Right.
When Magneto has his powers taken away. And
oh, yes. And the
movie is him playing chess by himself and trying so hard to move the piece, and it just barely goes, just enough to give you hope, something like that. No, that would have been really cool too, but it was Will Smith, and so we had to absolve Will Smith by him saving the girl. Sonny had to save the girl too.
Yep.
Make Will Smith feel better. So it is what it is, but it was good film. Really good.
No, it was. I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. One little couple things to note that I thought were interesting. For a while, Arnold Schwarzenegger was attached to this project. Would have been a completely different movie.
Oh yeah, Total Recall vibes coming in.
Absolutely. And this movie was offered to Denzel Washington, but he turned it down because he went on to make The Manchurian Candidate instead. Also, again, completely different movie.
Yeah.
But, well, Sean, is there anything else you want to bring up or talk about before I wrap up? I think this has been a
one line that stood out to me, and it was the lieutenant that said it, and it's, I'm going to miss the good old days. Mm-hmm. And Will Smith says, what do you mean the good old days? Back when it was just people killing people.
Yeah.
And I was like,
a good line.
But no, it's I'm welcoming leaving, quote unquote, the good old days to see what cool advancements will come with robotics in our future.
Absolutely. No, I want an NS5 in my house right now. I have to go grocery shopping in a minute, and would love it if I didn't have to.
Oh, and you could even just like say, oops, I forgot this, and then he's already in the store to grab it. He's better than a husband going grocery shopping. My NS5. I even just gendered him. He's my buddy.
Yep, exactly. Got my running buddy. All right, Sean. Well, thanks again for joining me on today's episode. I had a really good talk with you.
Thanks, Andy. It's great to be here.
Yeah. And thank you for listening. Wherever you're listening, please rate and subscribe. Leave us a review. Really helps the algorithm. And I want to hear from you. So head over to thwack.com, leave me a comment, or you can email us at moviesandmainframes@solarwinds.com. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode. We are going to log off, and then till the next time, we will catch you later. Bye, everyone.